I'm looking at this big tree out the window. That's all I've got. Me looking at a tree. It's November the 4th. I haven't got a clue what time it is because I've been stuck in here making YouTube videos all day. And I realised I didn't have a Philosophy Sunday video. So I had this idea. I thought, why don't I make the topic of this Sunday's Philosophy Sunday video the fact that I haven't got a topic. Maybe if I just switch the camera on, something would come to me. So I switched the camera on and I sat in the chair and I sat and waited. And my mind was empty. There was nothing in there at all. I felt like I was floating in a state of sort of nothingness and yet hyper self-consciousness as I was aware that people were watching me doing something. And I started to think, should I just do a video where I just sit here for like 20 minutes? That would be like an artistic statement, wouldn't it? Because it would be like the antithesis to YouTube, wouldn't it? It would be the complete wrong thing to do. And a Talking Heads video is to not talk. You got the head still. But then, as I was thinking this, I started looking at this tree. Now, out of the window, I'm looking at a huge tree. I've lived in this house for 10 years. And if somebody had said, if you walk out like 20 foot out to your garden, where you can then turn to your right and look over there, is there a tree there and how big is that tree? And I would have gone, well, I don't know if there's a tree there. And yet there's a tree there, isn't there? And this tree is huge. A big round tree. Right? And I stared at this, I thought, I got no idea that that's there, and yet it's massive. Our perception is so strange of the things around us and how we aren't really aware of what's going on around us, are we? Now, if you look at a tree, okay, you could just see this big tree there. But a tree has had a life like yours and mine, except we move, you know. It's like when you watch Lord of the Rings and they climb up into Treebeard and then he starts walking around. That's freaky because we don't expect trees to walk, and there's a part of us that wants the tree to walk. And the reason why we want the tree to walk, I think, is because when they walk, they somehow would make their wisdom visible. Does that make sense? Once they start to move, because we're aware that the tree is sat there, you know, rooted, literally rooted to the spot. And there is within them the record of the past. We all know that because when you destroy the tree and you cut it through half and that tree's over at that point, you saw it through, and you open up, we all know we could see the circles, and this is almost like it's like a metaphor for time of history. And we know that tree would have sat there, and some trees have been there for 1,000 years, you know, in the UK, that would have been standing there as a little sapling, as, you know, the Normans invaded, you know, when the English Civil War was going on, the tree was sat there as a little teenager. You know, when King Charles I had his head chopped off, it was sat there as a little teenager. And what age is the tree now? How long will it go on for? The tree sits there. And because it doesn't move, unlike our life, its life is ingrained into the tree. Okay? And what this suggests to me is, when we look at a tree, it personifies time dimensionally, right? And it personifies the bringing together of order and chaos. There is a system that the tree is growing from, but the tree is yet chaotic and ordered at the same time. The way a branch moves through space is moving through space with an intention, which I think intention, the idea of going towards a goal, is what order is. But it gets there through the permutations of the worlds around you. So the tree grows and twists its way through life like we do. We've literally all done this. But when you look at the tree and you look at the shape of the tree, that is embodied in the tree. Now, I'm looking over to my books because I want to show you something. I'm going to go over to my books now. It's when you've got a load of books in the background, and they're not just there for show. Every now and then we'll remove AC/DC from their home there. Now, just to prove that I haven't planned this, I may not be able to find this book because I'm hoping I have found it. You see, there it is. I'm going to show you a book now. And I'm going to show you this book because you're probably sat here thinking, what the hell's this video? Because I haven't really talked about music yet and I don't know whether I would. What you're seeing here is this video is emerging like a tree. It's the creative process and how the creative process relates to time and space. Now, here's a book that's been very influential on my worldview. It's by P.D. Ouspensky. It's called A New Model of the Universe. P.D. Ouspensky is most well known for being a pupil of Gurdjieff, but this was written before he was a pupil, and he was a mathematician. Right, so if we go through this, there's a number of chapters. The first chapter, which is called Esotericism and Modern Thought, was very influential on me, but the second chapter is called The Fourth Dimension, right? And so when you open this chapter up, there is a picture of a tree, and if you look, P.D. Ouspensky has said underneath it a diagram of the fourth dimension in nature. I can remember looking at that diagram as a much younger man. I'm going to stick my book back there, don't want to lose it. It's a very special book. This is of mine. Well, I'll just stick it up there, but I won't lose it. Right, so I can remember looking at that chapter and I thought, that's a picture of a tree. That's not the fourth dimension. And I never really understood it. But I've thought about that quite a lot. And now, and it may well be because of that diagram, when I look at a tree, for me, it has become the personification of the fourth dimension. Right? If time is the fourth dimension, if you step outside of that, if you make the mental experiment of stepping outside of that, you are at once alive and dead. There is, your birth and your death is not events in time, it's events in space. It's the beginning and the end. It's like you have a stick of wood and at the one end is the one end and at the other end is the other. They're just spatial points. But we don't experience time from outside. We can't look at time and step back out of it. Our three dimensions that we exist in exist within the confines of this fourth dimension. Now, when P.D. Ouspensky was saying this back at the turn of the last century in that book, I think it's written about it around about 1914, something like that, 100 years ago, 110 years ago actually, when he was writing that, we hadn't had the scientific breakthroughs that really have shown, Einstein's shown that space and time are the same thing and they're linked, right? So if this is the case, what P.D. Ouspensky is arguing in there, and this is where he came up to blows with Gurdjieff, because Gurdjieff wouldn't accept this, but if we are actually inside a dimension, right, who we are is bounded by the limits. Our birth and death are spatial limits. And so, because we're trapped inside it, when we get to the end of it, it either stops and time stops for us, or we just go back round the beginning. And this is the idea that is in many other religions of eternal recurrence. Some people believe that you may enter another body and exist within that, that our soul sort of jumps through. But this idea that we go around a circle, we're going around a circle of our life over and over again, and that we have experienced this circle over and over. Now let's bring the music in, shall we? Right? At this point, right, if you want, you can stop the video and go and watch the video for Once in a Lifetime by Talking Heads. When I was very young, around about when that album was made, 79 to 1980, something like that, I was 11, 12, that single came out. It's incredibly funky, but it's its own type of weird funk, isn't it, that tune? But the video with David Byrne, I thought, why is he being so weird? It's so weird and abstract. And it was a conundrum. It was something I didn't understand in the same way as I didn't understand that diagram of the tree and how that was supposedly the fourth dimension. I thought it was a great track, very catchy, very hooky, right? But I felt it was a little bit weird. For the sake of being weird. Why do people just have to be weird like that? Why can't they just make a nice song and sing about something that's not just, you've just been strange for the sake of being strange, and he was doing all these funny movements, the video's all funny. I thought, what the hell's all that about? Right, so now let's put these two things together. Let's put Once in a Lifetime by Talking Heads and P.D. Ouspensky's idea of eternal recurrence, right? I'm now going to tell you, over years and years, the realisation that I once had at some point when I was listening to, for the 100th time, one of my favourite tracks, Once in a Lifetime by Talking. So I already like the track, but one day I'm listening to it and I have a revelation about the world listening to this song. That song is built on a conceit, right, which isn't actually true. But the conceit is that if you took a raindrop of water, a particle of water, that's a little bit like a human being, isn't it? A little tiny particle of water, and you drop that into the ocean. And the ocean is like our existence, isn't it? We're all like tiny little specks of water that you drop into this ocean. The sun comes out and it evaporates and it lifts up some of those water particles and it takes them across the sky in clouds and then it rains down onto the land, right? And that water soaks into the earth. It's purified by that experience, and it travels through the rocks. It then exercises it into little streams that turns into rivulets, that turns into rivers, and it flows back to the ocean in a great big circle, right? That song is based upon the idea that process, which is a real process and does happen, that process takes the same amount of time as someone's life. So it links that process, right? And if you listen to the lyrics, he describes it quite straight. This process of the water moving under, then out and over, and then this circle, and it happens. That's once in a lifetime. Once in your lifetime, that particle of water. So that water particle moving around in a circle becomes a metaphor for us and our life. And that rebirth, death is a circle that we move around. In other words, that song is about eternal recurrence. It posits the idea that P.D. Ouspensky posits in that book, the idea that we're actually trapped in a time loop and we're going round and round again, right? Now within that, it then posits another idea which is quite esoteric, is the idea that because we're going round and round it, we have some sort of awareness of this. And this creates a disjointedness in us, right? As we go around, we find ourselves at one point we're living in one life, and then another point we're living in another life. And this creates the existential angst that's felt, where you suddenly wake up and go, why have I got this beautiful house? Why have I got this beautiful wife? What is this all about? Right? And the idea that comes to spirituality is this idea that through consolidating yourself as a person, which means bringing elements together that are within you, right? By consolidating, you can strengthen that, and you can gain some sort of wisdom from being in this situation which you are only vaguely aware of, right? And that is truly the role of religions. Now, if you now go back to Talking Heads video, David Byrne delivers that song like a preacher. It's a sermon. He delivers it in the style of a sort of snake-oiled American preacher that would have been popular in the 1930s or 40s. He's dressed in that way. And he uses the gestures of a preacher, but those gestures are then taken over by gestures of people worshipping and acting in ways all over the world, right? It's an argument about religion and the way religion directs us. It's about spirituality, and yet that song is entirely nihilist. The preacher says this esoteric idea. It says it to us, you know, aren't you just like a drop of water, just going round and round over and over again, having the same life but different life? What's going on? And there's no answer to it. It's pure postmodernist existential and untethered for what religion gives to us. Now, I am not a religious person, all right? My religion is art and music. I believe that role that religion plays, that is like an embodiment of what art does. And the proof of that for me is my spiritual revelation is the spiritual revelation that I've just described in this video. All right? It's the spiritual revelation of being able to look at a tree, and because of my specific experience that I've had, and we've all had a specific experience, and we can only build our knowledge from our own specific experience, but the specific experience I've described in this video to you, right, when I look at the tree and I focus on it, suddenly I'm taken back to a line of thinking that has come specifically from my personal experience, which is at once ordered and chaotic, like the branch of a tree. And when you look at the way each branch has slowly over time moved its way out, and every bit of sunshine and, you know, cold winter and warm winter and windy blow, whatever that there has been through that process, the branches just haven't grown out smooth in a straight line. There are certain points where life throws shocks at you. It throws these things at you, and at that point, to carry on growing, you have to sort of make a leap to get to that next stage. And that's what spiritual growth is. It's equivalent to the growth that we see in a tree, right? And these things for me are not only embodied in religion, and they are in religion, but they are also embodied in the arts, right? And what I've tried to do on this video, I made the mistake there of saying this is what I've tried to do, right? Because the whole point of this video, when I switched that camera on, is I thought I haven't got a clue what I'm about to talk about. And the reason why I have just said all this is because I pressed the button on the camera, right? I genuinely had no idea about what I was going to talk about today. If you watch the subject matter of this YouTube, you will find that continually I am trying to make the point of the subconscious aspects of creativity. We are all perfectionists as creative people. We all want to come across looking really good and get everything right, and that's all part of it. That's the order, but there can be too much order, and I believe at the moment we are living through a time which seems so chaotic because we are holding on to order too much, and we're not allowing, right? We're not allowing to open ourselves up to what is out there, and allowing our personal experience to come and knock the door of our consciousness and go, you know something, it could be like this. In other words, the truth is contained within us all. You just have to go and stare at a tree. and then think about a Talking Heads song. True Philosophy Sunday video that was. True. That was it. That went all right, actually. I knew I was taking a risk when I did that. I knew I was taking a risk. I thought, switch the camera on and just see what happens. You know, stare and don't start talking until you've got a reason to say something. And when that crops in, and I was sat there panicking because this order and chaos thing, and I didn't want to look like an idiot. So I had to do a few comedy, gestures at the camera just to let you know in on it and know that I knew you were there and that we were having a bit of a game. I had to do that. But that tree over there pulled me in. I'm going to finish the video, I think, by showing you the tree. And you can have a good look at it yourself and think about Talking Heads. Right, here's the talking head. Oh, this video's so full of meaning, isn't it? It's as though I've planned it. Isn't it so about it? Here's the talking heads. I've talked about talking heads, and now we're going to see the tree, the opposite of talking heads. And I broke that at the beginning. Oh, isn't it clever, isn't it? I haven't got a clue what's going on. I haven't. You just have to open yourself up to something. This is the real mystery of the world. Anyway, some of you are sat there going, well, it's just a fluke, it's a fluke. Some of you go, God, that's weird. Did Andy plan that? Maybe he did all plan that. Maybe it's some massive conceit. Because he mentioned a conceit earlier on. Why would he mention a conceit? Maybe it all means something. Why? What's he got in the background of his video? He went up to the background, he took that AC/DC video, that album away, he took that away. Why did he remove If You Want Blood? Right, so I'm going to swizzle the camera around and I'm going to try and zoom in on the big tree. See, on the camera, this is the trouble with real life and art. It doesn't look big, but I'll zoom in on it. There's this, it's really far away and it's a big monster tree. There it is. I'm sure you people who don't live in England, they've probably got much bigger trees, giant redwoods by you, and you probably think that's not a big tree, that's a little baby tree. My thing's gone broken now, hang on. It's all gone funny. Right, so there's the tree. That's the tree I stared at. So look at that. The fourth dimension, that is.